If you're running a SaaS business, whether it's B2B or even B2C, you're handling different types of contracts. On one side, if you're selling to businesses, you'll have your own customers, which have MSAs, you'll have order forms, and you might also have like data processing agreements. And then on the other end, there's vendors servicing you, and you also might have data processing agreements, or you might have vendor agreements with those parties. What makes this important is if you want to manage those contracts in one place, that becomes hard because you have value scattered across these contracts. You'll have clauses, you'll have obligations, and you have to open all these contracts to see what the specifics are. So that's why we built Contracco, and I'm going to show you a few workflows in Contracco to easily see where the value is, or your risks or your obligations. So you won't miss any clauses or you won't miss renewal dates if you can use these flows in Contracco. And we're going to start with that service side to your business, that vendor side. So for example, we have Sentinel Security here, which does security monitoring and penetration testing. All the information is here in the contract, and this contract is uploaded in Contracco itself. And what Contracco then does is it extracts all this information from the contract and makes it structured and easily accessible to you. So in general, this is a subscription agreement between Cadence Labs as a customer and Sentinel Security as vendor for continuous security monitoring and quarterly penetration testing services. So it's a quick summary that we have over here. And the great thing about this is that we can also go to the events and notifications tab, and this contract probably ends at a certain date. Some are open-ended, but this specific contract ends on the January 31, 2027. But often hidden in these types of contracts are notice deadlines. So if you want to stop the subscription and not have it roll over to the next year, there is this notice deadline. And Contracco extracts that and gives you alerting service. So then you become aware if you have this notice deadline upcoming, and you might want to take a look at this contract again or this service if this still fits your business. So these events and notifications are super important for a business, because otherwise there's like value just like rolling over to the next year, and it might have additional costs for your business to stop the contract, or if you're in the process of changing a vendor, these notice deadlines are super important. Of course, you can also click on the AI analysis here, and it gives you an overview, the summary, and the assessments. And for example, as we just said, like that automatic renewal is a problem. So the AI assessment is that is a main commercial concern, that this renewal exists in this contract. Otherwise, you're liable for an additional year. And there is maybe some risks in this contract. Contracco analyzes the contract and gives you some recommendations. So again, that full renewal year, unless that notice isn't like timely given. So and the other risk, of course, to be aware is if after a short payment reminder periods, you might have forgotten a payment, or your finance department hasn't paid, the vendor may suspend monitoring. So that is a business risk too. And of course, there's obligations in a contract, which in this case gets applied to either the counterparty or you, which is super handy because you also might have obligations to the vendor. Of course, that's like the payment of the annual subscription fee, but you can also see what the vendor has to do for you. So this, for example, shows that it is a their lead penetration testing, and that is one of the main obligations here. And there's like invoice conditions, there is an obligation, for example, to follow documented processing instructions. So that is something that the vendor has to do as part of this contract. Let's go back a little bit, because you might have different parties you're interacting with here. And those all get collected in this parties tab. And for example, let's take a look at Northgate Retail. We can click on that counterparty and then have all the contracts in one place that we have with that counterparty. So this makes it easy to see how your contracts are structured for one counterparty. And now it's not like scattered in a folder and you have to, start searching through all the contracts, which counterparty you have agreements with. Especially important here is that there is this MSA, that agreement that makes like all specific orders viable under this agreement, and also you don't have to repeat conditions or terms in all the separate orders you get or assignments you get. It falls under this main contract. So it's good to have in place if you're doing repeat orders or services to one party, especially as a SaaS business, if you're working B2B. So what we can have then is like take a look at these contracts, see if we have that MSA in place, see if there's some kind of order form. And in addition, here we have this data processing agreement in place here, which is an addendum probably to that MSA. As you can see, Contracco correctly identified that to here. Its duration is tied to the term of that MSA. So it is an addendum, but it also gets like processed correctly what's in this contract, and gets also like matched to this contract that we have in place here. And then let's take a look at the order form. And that order form is smaller because it refers to that MSA. And then you often can see that this is an order form that has less risks or obligation. And as you can see, for example, in this AI assessment, the order form also incorporates the MSA and data processing agreement. So there's like relations between these contracts that get surfaced to from the contract data, but Contracco is picking that up. Funny enough, like there can still be risks. So for example, here identified is the MSA controls conflict with this order form. Commercial terms recorded in the order form may be overridden by provisions in the separate referenced MSA. So now you have to check both contracts if those still align, but at least you know here that this order form can be overridden by that MSA. What's even cooler is that we have this function here with Clara AI. So what you can do is you're not sure what conditions are in contracts or which counterparty, vendor, or customer you have certain agreements with, or if there's risk across contracts, you can ask our AI bot Clara. And you can just ask it in natural language, and it will return the answer for you from your contract. So it will analyze the contracts, it will take a look at the conditions, the risks, read specific contracts if you tell it to dig deeper. So, for example, I have given Clara the task with finding which customers have a DPA, a data processing agreement. So Clara then performs a few steps in here, which is looking for matching text, searching for contracts, and fetching the contracts and getting the details. And then Clara finds two customers with the DPA documents. So as we just saw with Northgate Retail, there is that personal data processing agreement in place, and it's described as a DPA, even if it's called personal data processing. So it can also make connections based on what's in the contract and not only on contract title, for example. And it also sees that it's filed under security and compliance addendum. So it can dig up certain terms or important conditions from a contract that you have. And if you want, you can then further ask clarifying questions. So you can dig deeper, you can click on the contract itself. Maybe you're looking for this specific contract from Meridian Health. You can still look at the terms and overview and which files are under here, for example. So even from within Clara, you can take a look at the contracts, dig deeper, or ask Clara these specific questions. So this concludes the video on how you can manage these processes, how you can manage your contracts in Contracco, different ways to look for information in contracts, but more specifically, how you can just get a grip on all the contracts on your business. If you want to try this out, we have a free trial available through the Contracco website. You can sign up, test it out with a few of your contracts, and see how this can solve your contract problems for you.